Elsie. Elsie, it's me, the devil. How are you?
I'm pretty great. How are you?
I've never been better. And that's why I wanted to come and tell you how appreciative I am of all you're doing on a Shin show.
Cool.
Elsie, are you surprised to hear from the devil?
No more or less so than to talk to God.
That's a good point. You just never know when one or the other of us will show up.
I equally believe and don't believe in both of you. So that sounds about right.
I don't even know what that means, Elsie, but I do want you to know that you, as far as I'm concerned, are doing great work on behalf of the denizens of hell, all of whom are forced to listen to all 100 A Shin Show episodes all the time.
Well then, as you know, I've said on this very pod that I committed to hell a long time ago.
Yeah, you said that to God, and that's great. You're going to be quite a celebrity, I'm not going to lie. It's on everywhere. People are in absolute misery.
Well, you better be ready for me, because I'm quite bossy, I've been told.
I'm just kidding anyway. There's no hell. I'm just a figment of your imagination. That's right, you're mentally ill.
I talk to these other fuckers once a week. That's pretty self-evident.
Are you saying that's evidence that you're insane? That you would be willing to talk to the other members of a Shin show?
I'm saying they're all insane, so that makes me insane by association.
Yeah, you're right.
I always am.
A Shin show.
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 Ever been on I-95 stuck between two semis, one going 1 to 2 miles an hour faster than the other for no real fucking reason?
Oh, hell yeah.
Don't you wish you could just shoot out a tire or two and get them off the road? Now you can!
Ooh-wee.
Here at Chain Shot is where a no-frills, all-thrills firearms establishment. Here at the SS, we have a strict no-questions-asked policy. We carry all varieties of shotguns and ammunition and nothing else. We here at the SS believe shotguns are the master race of firearms. Thus, if you buy an SS weapon, you are honor bound to only use shotguns for the remainder of your existence. And trust me, we check.
Some bitch.
If you go rogue, we will find you, hunt you down, and butcher you with ruthless brutality.
God damn.
But we got the best prices around. Hell, we're just giving these away.
I heard that.
Located in bumfuck Florida, you will get one free weapon with a Florida driver's license. Woo! So come on down to the SS and get some. And don't forget to shoot it like you stole it.
Yeehaw! Welcome to A Shin Show. I'm your host, Pete Shin. Joining me, Elsie, beloved spouse, daughter Sara, and son Nick. How are you all?
We're fine.
Hot off the work express or some shit. I don't know.
The chain gang.
We're here. We're queer. Most of us. Let's do this.
Actually, only 25% of us are queer.
I'm going to take that as most.
You know, I see you moving your entire head over to the mic. Why don't you just keep your head near the mic?
Because he's enjoying confusing you and giving you this visage.
Because you guys are sharing a mic. That's what it is.
We're sharing a microphone. That's exactly what it is. And as a result, I have to move my head, then she has to move her head. It's so worth it, though, because this is our special 99th show.
Really? Wow. Look at us.
Yeah, it's a special edition. Now, you could say the 100th show is really the special one, but I say it's the one before and the one after. It's the 99th and 101st that are really the most special.
Because they bookend the actual special one?
That's exactly right. So 99th means you've really come a long way. 100th is, well, what is it really? It's a non-event.
You're entitled to your wrong opinion, I guess.
Exactly. Your very, very wrong opinion.
Did you see this clip of Brian Ortega letting the Korean zombie slap him after the fight?
That's funny.
Yeah. We on the fights last week, Brian Ortega fought the Korean zombie. That was the main event. And Brian Ortega tooled on him. Beat his ass. It was a unanimous decision, wasn't it?
I think so.
And then after the fight, Brian Ortega let the Korean zombie slap him in the face.
Why? Just because he wanted to?
It was like just like a little playful. He was like, you know, he was like motioning for him to slap him in the face, and it was just like a playful little like that. And then they were like hugging it out and laughing and shit.
You can hit me. It's okay.
Even though the Korean zombie got his ass kicked.
Yeah. I saw a thing that said he said that he couldn't remember the last 3 rounds of that fight.
Really?
Yeah.
Probably from that spinning back elbow.
Yeah.
And I saw another clip of Brian Ortega, you know how they wore him up in the back. He was practicing that spinning back elbow.
Really? That's so funny because that's how he got knocked out last time.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, it is.
Well, the really funny part is that the Korean zombie saying he can't remember the last 3 rounds of that fight. The fight was only 3 rounds. And
no, it was 5 rounds.
No, I'm just kidding. Joking.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Your knowledge of UFC and MMA in general is so bad that I thought I couldn't tell that you were joking.
I know one thing. The Korean zombie got his ass kicked. You know how I know that? You told me. So that's how I know.
Internet connection is unstable.
Well, that's not surprising. We're in a fucking hotel room.
No, it's not you. It's us. Or maybe it is you. I don't know.
Mine looks fine.
Yeah, we're on Wi-Fi. They got the error message. It's their fault. Burn the witch.
Wow.
Burn the witch. Burn the witch. Okay, well, anyway.
How do you know?
Because Nick outed you. He said that you had an internet issue.
Now, Sarah's responding to Dad's question of how do I know?
Oh, well, it'll be on the recording, but I know because you told me.
So the same answer.
Yeah.
Same answer. Nick outed us.
Oh, God. Anyway, so listen, I got huge amounts.
Would you say huge?
Huge amount of human feedback about, by that I mean somebody texted Dad and then somebody texted me that said they enjoyed what I had to say about that history podcast I've been listening to.
Yeah, man. I will tell you that there's a whole audience for people who are very interested in war and the logistics of war.
Yeah, and so having completed the King of Kings podcast, which was the entire Persian Empire from rise to fall, and also the part of the Greek Empire. There was never a Greek Empire. It's
society? Is that the right term?
Yeah, it's like
culture, maybe?
What we call Greece now, that whole area of Greece wasn't Greece. It was a bunch of warring city-states is what it was.
Right.
It was Athens, it was Sparta, it was Macedonia, it was all of these places.
Yeah, Macedonia, Athens, Sparta.
Soft C. It's not a macadamia nut.
And so on.
I've heard it both ways. I've heard it Macedonian and Macedonian. And I've seen traditional spelling of it being with a K, not a C at all.
Okay.
I have.
I'm not, you know what? I'll let you have it.
You're saying okay incredulously, like I haven't. I have. Anyway, the point is, and there was other places, they didn't really matter though. It was mostly, but anyway, I moved on to the next series, which was just one podcast, 1 6-hour podcast that was called The Celtic Holocaust.
Yeah.
Which detailed Julius Caesar's campaigns, multiple campaigns into
England.
England was one of them. It was mostly Germany. Just all that space from above the Alps.
It was like the Goths or whatever that they were.
The Gauls.
Gauls. Yeah, okay.
The Gauls specifically, which were in what is now present-day France and Germany. But mostly France, actually.
Yeah, what it was is that Rome had conquered everything to the left and to the right of them. Everyone just assumed that there was nothing above them. And then these
you know what that sounds like to me? Bunch of flat earthers.
That's right. Romans, flat earthers.
Possibly. No, definitely not. But
no, definitely not. Actually, the Romans knew the earth was round, but that's a story for another time.
It is. But it all allegedly started when Rome was just a fledgling city-state. She maybe controlled 30 miles of country outside of Rome proper.
Did you just refer to Rome as she?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But Rome wants her power recognized. People do that. I don't know.
Yeah, they do, but they're also weird, and I'm also going to call them out on it.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes people just give the she pronoun to things. Cities, ships, cars. I don't know why.
That would be an interesting psychological or sociological study or explanation.
It's okay.
But anyway, continue.
No, I already know the answer to that question.
And it is?
Yeah, the reason that some people refer to countries or ships or cars as she is because they have vaginas.
Oh, I feel stupid
Nick,
now.
do you have a vagina?
I don't.
He must.
I never referred to myself as a country or a ship or a car, though.
Yeah, but you referred to the country as a girl. The way Dad phrased it.
He's saying that the fucking objects have vaginas, not the people.
I disagree.
No, I am.
They're not
I'm
mutually
here.
exclusive.
Wait a minute. That's true. They're not mutually exclusive. But just to clarify my original point, countries, ships, and cars all have vaginas.
And they do, and that's a scientific fact. Anyway, so how it started was a fucking group of
Science wants a word, but okay, go ahead.
Well, they do, though. Not always, but sometimes they do. Sometimes countries,
cars have vaginas,
and ships have vaginas inside them.
Okay.
Yes or yes?
I'm not, okay, whatever. Continue.
If there's a woman driving a car, then that car has a vagina inside of it.
Okay. But when the woman leaves the car, or I guess
the phantom of the vagina stays.
Okay.
And therefore is attached to it
Why are we
vagina.
assigning gender to inanimate objects? Like,
I don't know. I don't know. People just do that, and I was just going along with it. It's kind of derailed my entire story here.
Are you being a sheeple? You're being a sheeple about this gender thing, aren't you?
I guess. I'm just
being
parroting
difficult.
words, basically.
I'm being difficult. Go ahead and continue with your Rome she story who wanted to conquer the Gauls.
Rome she story.
Yeah, meanwhile, about 50 years before the birth of Christ.
Yeah, well, look, here's what happened, okay? 300 years before the birth of Christ was when Rome was a small city-state, okay? It was not the power that we know of today. And it didn't really have, like, an army, per se. It had a militia of people, the farmers. It wasn't the tightly oiled, that's not the right word.
It wasn't the well-oiled imperial machine that we know it as after, for example, the birth of Christ and Caesar Augustus and so on and so forth.
And so on and so forth. So when it was a tiny little city-state, reportedly, now, as we may or may not know, a lot of these numbers are exaggerated.
Yeah, you said that last time, is that 100,000 looks like 1 million, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, but reportedly 200,000 barbarians, quote unquote, as the Romans like to describe them.
It was really 3 guys in a trench coat, but go on.
3 guys standing on top of their shoulders, each other's shoulders in a trench coat, showed up on the outskirts of the city. And Dan Carlin makes an interesting point. Even today, if there was a previously uncontacted tribe of native people who just showed up on the border of Canada, 200,000 of them, to invade the United States, that would be a crisis today. So what happened was, allegedly, 200,000 barbarians showed up on the outskirts of Rome, and the Roman people were like, we are
What the
fucked.
fuck?
Yeah, we can't.
Where'd you come from?
Yeah, we can't do this. We're not.
How big is that trench coat?
So Rome got sacked. They were pissed about it 300 years later and went and genocided the Gauls because of it. Long story short.
They held a grudge. I got you.
They sure did. And
there's a lot more nuance and interesting points to that story if anyone cares to hear them at any point.
Here's my one follow-up question that I will give you because I can tell that this interests you. Is that
and also other people who have messaged me.
Yeah, the whole one person. But that's
2
okay.
people! 100% more people.
Who is this other person?
Den Bixen.
Okay.
Okay, great.
All right. This one's for you, Den. How did the slaughter or sack of Rome stay in the collective memory for 300 years?
Well, that's an interesting question, isn't it? Because what the Roman people did, allegedly, is when they saw the 200,000 barbarians coming to sack Rome, and there are speculations that this wasn't even a Gallic tribe. It was like an army of mercenaries on their way to go help a separate Gallic king, and Rome was on the way and they needed food, so they sacked it. But regardless of who they actually
were,
like
the Persians or whatever,
it was a bad deal. Like when they came in, they killed a lot of people. All the people, what they did was they just left the gates open. They all ran away out the back door and kept the leaders of the Roman Republic at the time sat in the main courtyard of the place and sat there, in all their finest clothes and weapons and shit, and they just sat there and let the Gauls come in. And the Gauls, not knowing what the fuck was going on, maybe they're statues, what are these things, they walk in, they're not destroying anything, and they're looking at these Roman leaders until one of them reportedly touches a Roman leader's beard, is fucking with it, and then the Roman takes his cane and bashes him on the head with it for touching him, and then slaughter ensues. And so they kill all the Roman leaders. They sack the entire city to a point where nobody ever forgets it. No one ever forgets that one time that those tribe of savages came through and destroyed our city.
So, yeah, when your city gets sacked, the memory of that's going to stick with you for a few hundred years.
Yeah. Having a city being sacked, even now, when people think about it, it's watered down. To watch the streets get choked with people, and this is at a way later point in the podcast, but Dan Carlin likens it to when you go to Europe and you go to those old cities, you notice how narrow the streets are. They're not made for cars. So, when you have a population of, let's say, 20,000 people trying to escape a city.
Oh yeah, it's like when people get trampled at the train station.
Right. In using Caesar's own words, Caesar wrote an entire compendium. He wrote many books about his campaigns into Gaul and why it was necessary and why he needed to do it, quote unquote needed, why he was justified in doing it. Because not only was Caesar an amazing general, and this is where he differs from a lot of people, like Alexander the Great, he was also an insane politician as well. He really knew how to just work people, foreign people, his own people. He knew how to control the narrative to make it seem like everything he was doing was for the glory and power of the Roman Empire. And it was better for you as an average citizen that he does what he needs to do.
Trust me, I'm a dictator.
Yeah, but within these texts, he says himself that the streets get choked with people trying to escape. And one Gallic city, reportedly with a population of 40,000 people, 800 of them survived.
Yeah, big yikes.
Yeah.
My next question was, do you think the collective memory of the sacking stayed with the Gallic states?
Probably not.
So then you have this whole cycle of violence, right? Like, oh God, they sacked my city, and then Rome probably wouldn't forget because it would be a victory for the original sacking, but...
Well, if
those
I may,
responsible for the sacking have themselves been sacked.
and if I may, and I'm sure you're going to point this out, Nick, the Gauls themselves who were being genocided by Julius Caesar, they may not have even known why the Romans were so pissed off, because it might not actually have been them that sacked Rome. But as far as Julius Caesar and the Romans were concerned, all of the Gauls were being painted with that brush from 300 years earlier. And as a result, they all had to fucking die, and most of them did.
Yeah. Here, that's the thing, is that these original quote-unquote Gauls, or Celts, they call them, what is a Celtic person? Would they all say that these Gauls/Celts had multiple different languages, multiple different cultures? So it sounds like, to me, they were just being ethno-journically lazy.
Yeah. Do you live in Rome? No? All right.
It would just be like us saying in America, like, all Native American people were just natives. You know, there's Iroquois, there's Sioux, there's all these, and they have different languages and different customs and cultures, but we just put them under the blanket of Native Americans.
And then we put them under smallpox blankets.
Yes. Well, and here's the thing. He often likens it to when we fought the Native Americans versus when Caesar fought them, is that the Native Americans never once had the chance that Gaul did, mainly because of the disease. But there was never like a confederation of 100,000 Native Americans ready to fight colonial, I guess, British people or settling Americans. If there had been an army of 100,000 Native Americans fighting all at the same time, what would have happened? How would that have differed?
Yeah, see, that would be an interesting podcast. I like what ifs.
Well, yeah, and that's part of it. But to answer your original question, the original people who sacked Rome may or may not have had anything to do with the Gallic people that Caesar continually subjugated. As I said, they could have just been a mercenary army on their way to go help someone else and just was like, yeah, we're running out of food. Let's sack this little village. It wasn't anything personal, or maybe it was. It's just war. So, but they never forgot. And Caesar, 300 years later, was part of something. It's one of the biggest conspiracies, or one of the oldest conspiracies of all time, if you don't count the whole third Persian king fucking I killed his brother, but really it was an imposter. That's a conspiracy too. But this one is called the Triumvirate, which was never officially recognized, but people said there was 3 people in Rome. Despite it being a republic with senators and consuls and all, there was 3 people who had the power: Julius Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus. If those 3 guys agreed on something, it was going to happen in Rome.
Is that why they call Bones, McCoy, and Spock the Triumvirate?
Any grouping of 3 people, they'll basically call a triumvirate if they share power.
Okay.
Yeah. But this was, I can't even say it was the first one.
Who knows?
It was the OG triumvirate.
Yeah, it was the OG triumvirate proper. And Julius Caesar allegedly had very bad debts. His money was funny. He had very funny money to the
point. Much like our president today.
Right, yeah. There are similarities to be drawn between the two, but there came a point, allegedly, where Caesar owed so many people so much money, he was not allowed to leave Rome. He couldn't. They're like, yeah, hey.
They put him under house arrest.
Yeah, like, hey, you're not leaving town until you figure out a way to rustle up this money because you fucked us. You're in a lot of debt. And apparently, the third member of the triumvirate, Crassus, there's also some cool stories about him. He came in and paid all of Caesar's debts. He said, hey, you're in trouble. I'll help you out, buddy. You owe me a favor, nudge, nudge.
Yes, in fact, here's what you owe me, a third of the share of the power.
Right. And Crassus had this is a side story, but he had this habit. He owned the fire department in Rome, owned the firefighters. So he would send someone to covertly light someone's house on fire. And then when they're outside of their house screaming, "Oh my God, my fucking house is on fire," Crassus would show up with the firefighters and put an offer on their house and say, "Hey, I'll buy this house from you for $100." And they'll be like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Tell you what, if you don't take this offer, the firefighters aren't putting your house out."
Wait a minute. Are you telling me that at one point there were Italians running a protection racket? Weird.
Yeah, right. That's the kind of stuff he would do, but this isn't about him. So Caesar made this point that the Gallic tribes, the ones that sacked us 300 years ago, were starting to get more organized. We're starting to become more like Rome. And if we don't go take care of them now, if we don't go conquer them now,
if we don't build that wall,
they are going to come and conquer us, which may or may not have been true. But Caesar was a big proponent of, we don't tell you how to exercise your rights, so don't tell us how to exercise ours. Our right is to come and conquer you. Your right is to try to defend against that. Things like that. Manifest destiny and all that shit. So he went into Gaul, and I don't have quite as many details on this as I did for the other one, because it was all one long thing. But basically, it was basically slaves. What he would do is he would go in there, kill a third of the population,
enslave the rest of them.
And this was how he made good on his debts. You send an ocean of slaves back to the city of Rome. That's worth a lot of money. He would also give his soldiers slaves. This is how he made his soldiers respect him, by paying them. He paid them a lot of money. They went and got the spoils. You go pillage and loot. You can keep a pocket full of shit. And if we get some slaves, we'll give you a slave. So that was some good loot. You send the slave. It's like a paycheck. You send it back to your family for whatever.
Cheaper than children.
And by the way, when you say it, you're talking about a slave, so you're talking about a human being, so you would send him or her.
Yes, quite. And so there was various reasons why Caesar and the Romans were just so dominant over the Gauls, because at first they weren't. The Gauls are described as, on average, 5 to 6 inches taller, 5 to 6 inches taller than all the Romans. They had like this mystique about them, that they were battle mad, that they would just rush wildly into battle and just start swinging and chopping left and right. They dyed their hair with lemon and water, so they all had white hair, pulled back into buns on their head, just big fucking guys.
Sounds like Norse.
They were Vikings before they were Vikings. And, so there was like an intimidation factor. But this goes to show the value of drills and organization and chains of command. Because if you survived that initial onslaught of Celtic warriors screaming down a hill, crashing into your front line, if you survived for a while, Romans were good at digging in and just starving you out or just holding the line. Once you do that, they can't.
Yeah, real tortoise hare situation.
Yeah, because here's what happens when you run screaming and charging and wielding a blade or a spear or a pike. You get tired, and then you get seepy, and then you get stabbed through the throat by a Roman.
Right. On top of that, the Romans also had artillery, siege weapons. Now, obviously,
that's a big one.
Yeah, they didn't have
gunpowder
shells, but they did have these things akin to trebuchets that used, even today, it's kind of hard to understand how they did it, but it was a twisting, torque-throwing thing. They would sharpen giant stakes of wood, put them in there, or just big-ass stones. And Caesar describes the fear of hearing those things flying through the air played a big psychological component to every battle.
Like the sound of a missile dropping.
Right.
Yeah.
Also,
and a trebuchet, by the way, for those who are not familiar with that word, another word might be catapult.
Oh, people on Reddit would rip you to shreds for comparing those two. The trebuchet is the superior siege weapon.
I understand, but in terms of mentally picturing it, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's similar to that.
I'm going to regret asking this, but why is it the superior siege weapon?
There's many more qualified people to tell you, but basically what it is.
You don't know, do you?
Well, no, the catapult goes, it's like someone flinging a spoon like this. A trebuchet, like, you know how you fling a spoon of food at somebody? A trebuchet is like if you did a fucking windmill with the spoon. You just get
it's got
power.
like more torque to it.
It goes all the way around.
Instead of just dragging it down, you've got...
Yeah, instead of it being spring-loaded,
okay.
it does a full rotation, so it's more power.
Yeah, there's physics involved.
And there were reportedly some Gallic tribes who saw just the artillery and was like, I'm out. I'm not doing this. We're not fighting this guy. So there was quite a few Gallic tribes. And as I said, there was hundreds and hundreds of separate Gallic tribes. So to call them all Celts or to call them all Gauls was just like ethnically lazy, you know?
Yeah, because everyone knows that Celts are hard-drinking, potato-loving, drunken, leprechaun-loving, gold-digging, rainbow at the end of... Have I said enough Irish?
Pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is what you're trying to say. But that raises an interesting question. What is a Celt? Is it just someone from Ireland? Because...
I thought they were Welsh, too. I thought it was just like...
Welsh or from Britain or the ancient tribes from France and Germany. I mean, there's really no concrete way of distinguishing these different tribes because Caesar committed genocide on these motherfuckers. Romans, like a lot of other empires of the age, were fond of a good long-term domination plan is saying, you can do whatever you want, just pay us.
Give me all your fucking money.
Yeah, just pay us. But if there's some sort of cultural practice or norm that gets in the way of paying us, goodbye cultural practice. So you can see how over time, this is a cultural genocide.
Yeah.
Certain things that make up who you are as a people will get axed because...
It's like a melting pot, but taxi.
Yeah. Another big thing was that Caesar was just totally willing to kill the women and the children. Like everybody. So this is the whole carrot and the stick thing. It's if you acquiesce to our demands, everything will be mostly normal. Although geological samples of the area from that time show a huge decrease in natural resources when Caesar and his legions come in.
Well, that makes sense when you have a large army.
Right. This drags on his campaigns into Gaul, and the people of Rome are starting to think like, yo, he's overreaching his wartime authority. He's not...
What's he running from? Is it all the debt back home?
Well, yeah, basically, yes. He needs to accrue wealth, and he needs to keep making sure that people understand that he's doing this for Rome. But this is where it gets sticky, because with all the payment and slaves and general good fun that he's providing his troops start becoming loyal to Caesar and not loyal to Rome.
Yeah.
That's where the problem comes in. Because when he returns with
I've seen The Punisher.
When he returns with his armies and the Republican Roman Senate is like, okay, stand down. They're like, no, we don't listen to you. We listen to Caesar. He's the one who led us through countless victories. And
also, have you met my hot slave wife?
Right. And so after a few years, he pacifies, quote unquote, Gaul. But as soon as he leaves, like uprisings start happening. And this, that, the other thing, basically it just shakes out that he fucking kills all of them, is what it shakes out to. And there's huge federations, conglomerates of all these tribes. It just raises an interesting question because unlike the Jews in World War II, they didn't have a choice. They just got genocided. But the Gauls had a choice. You know what I mean?
Okay. I thought you said that I thought you were saying that the Jews had a choice.
No, they didn't have a choice.
Whoa.
Someone just decided, hey, round up the Jews and kill them. The Gauls had a choice. They, live, a choice between a rock and a hard place, but live under the rule of Roman supremacy or die. And it brings...
and some of them chose die.
Well, that's the thing is like, the stakes are, hey, if we win, we get our independence from Rome. If we lose, everyone's dead. We lose everything. Or sold into slavery. Either you're dead or sold into slavery. In which case you
still lose because you're being assimilated into a culture that's not yours.
And the question is, how many people are in on that decision? Is average Joe in on the decision to rebel against Rome? Hey, maybe he's doing all right. But the dudes at the top of the chain are like, no, we want liberty or we want death. Next thing you know, you're one of the 40,000 people trying to scramble out of this city, but you can't because the streets are choked with panicking people and you're all being slaughtered.
Yeah.
These are the kinds of decisions that people don't take into account.
Well, that's what happens when you don't climb that political ladder or whatever. When you just live in life, then sometimes you get axed by the Roman Empire.
Yeah, but...
Yeah, so this is why you got to vote, y'all.
Well, the Gauls
Or run for something.
voting and climbing
Run
the
from
political
something.
ladder was not the same thing to the Gallic tribes as it was to us.
Well, we don't know.
Gee,
We
you
don't
think
know.
so?
We actually don't. We actually don't know how that
This
was
is an
because they got
autonomous-
genocided.
This is an autonomous, autocratic.
This is an autonomous socialist collective.
Yes, thank you.
That's probably what the Gauls had, an autonomous socialist collective.
No way to
Wherein
know.
supreme executive authority passed from a group onto an individual on a rotating basis bi-weekly
Exactly.
until Caesar came along and started oppressing them.
The question is
He's
why?
not having it.
Well, I'm just trying to provoke some thought and conversation here. Jesus, you people.
Did I or did I not ask 2 interesting questions that sent you on a 20-minute rant?
You're right. All right, I'm done.
I'm not saying to be done. I'm just
No.
saying that we are providing thought-provoking conversation.
Indeed. And
We are an autonomous autocratic collective. Right.
That ties the history into current.
No.
No, okay, not current, but it makes it relatable. Makes it understandable.
If you've seen Monty Python, yes. Well, but
If you're listening to this, you've probably seen Monty Python.
I should hope so.
yes, and that would be the search for the Holy Grail, or the quest for the Holy Grail, or just the Holy Grail is the name of the movie. But the reality is that, yeah, Julius Caesar was a bad man who, from the Roman point of view, was covered in glory. But if you were a Gallic tribe, one of those Western European tribesmen around the turn of the millennium, 2,000 years ago, Julius Caesar was Adolf Hitler to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
I mean,
was.
Glory goes to the victors.
And this is another point he makes. We're so far removed from it now. This is just shit that happened. Us here, we have a still kind of burning hatred for Adolf Hitler because we know he was a piece of shit. We know exactly what kind of atrocities he committed.
As long as you're
2,500
not a
years.
Holocaust denier.
Right. 2,500 years from now, historians aren't going to be saying that. They're just going to say he wasn't doing anything that everybody else wasn't doing. He was just on the far end of the spectrum. He just was one of those people who accrued power, galvanized the population of the country he was from, and started an insane war.
That's exactly what I'm saying, is that we don't give a shit about history unless we can link it to current events and make it relevant to ourselves. It's the same thing, I'm linking it again, to people's coronavirus response, especially in our society as Americans. If it's not personally relevant to us, it's difficult for us to have empathy for it.
Yeah, that's true.
And I know I'm making generalizations here, but that actually has a lot to do with your education level and all that kind of stuff too.
Definitely.
Being educated and being not even necessarily educated, but education opens the door to new experiences. And when you have new experiences, that's when you gain empathy.
I suppose. I guess empathy wasn't that hard for me.
Well,
I learned that at a young age when I watched someone get struck or smash their finger or something. I think, well, how would I feel if that happened to me? I wouldn't feel very good.
Well, then you got a high emotional intelligence, but not everybody has that.
Certainly not.
It's true. I remember when you were just a boy and there was a turtle in the road and you had to stop the car so you could get out and move the turtle over to the grass. And I thought, what a tender-hearted young man.
Oh, I've done that actually multiple times.
Yeah,
Multiple
that-
times have we been driving and there's a turtle in the road, and I make everyone stop so I can move the turtle to safety or keep it.
And that's why you, son, will never be a Julius Caesar or an Adolf Hitler. And that's good.
Available exclusively on pay-per-view this Thanksgiving Day, TLC is proud to present the 150th annual Great American Differently Abled Adult Film Awards, hosted by the always entertaining Buckbuster. Join the millions around the world as we honor one of the giants of the differently abled adult film industry with the Differently Abled Adult Film Actors Guild's Lifetime Achievement Award. This is DeFagel's most prestigious award, given only to those differently abled adult film stars who have left a permanent stain on the bedsheets of this industry. And no one fits that description better than world-renowned quad amputee Percy Fingerling. He may not have any legs or arms, but as generations of satisfied fans can attest, there's only one limb he needs. Relive highlights from Percy's extraordinary career, from his work in the revolutionary stepmother-themed project Look Ma, No Hands, a performance that earned him the coveted DeFagel Stiffy Award for Best Actor, to his reverse gangbang scene in the epic Quad Johnson that launched more than a dozen copycat films, to the unforgettable movie that made him an international superstar, Amputee Pool Boy. Want more Percy Fingerling? Then call your cable provider and order the 150th Annual Great American Differently Abled Adult Film Awards presented by TLC right now.
But what I want to talk about is why there are certain units in certain armies who numerically should not make any difference. But Caesar describes a battle against the Gauls in which this is the greatest assembly of Gallic tribes ever recorded in history. Supposedly 200,000. And there are a lot of sources that say that this actually might be kind of accurate. There really are.
About the size of the undisclosed location, number of people.
Yeah, many, many, many thousands of Gauls here to fight against the Romans. And it's a close call. Although Caesar, in all his accounts of battles, likes to make it come down to one harrowing moment. It's always a close call. But
The
then,
dramataz.
Right. It's always a close call, but then someone comes in and makes the play of the game and saves us all from certain doom.
Do you think he was trying to get his Hollywood rights in?
Roman equivalent, yeah. Nevertheless, there comes a point where he leads a feint to draw the majority of the Gallic warriors off to the right flank. And then they come back. They realize it's a feint, and while his column is attacking the center, the warriors come back. So they're kind of sandwiched in, and they're kind of fucked. They're getting ripped
A pincer
apart.
movement.
Yeah, but then there's these German mercenaries that had joined Julius Caesar's army because there were a number of
Because
Gallic...
go fuck yourself.
Well, yeah, there was a number of Gallic tribes that were with Caesar. A lot of them were like, hey, we're not with those guys. Please don't genocide our entire civilization. We're going to just roll with you, and that'll be that. But these German cavalrymen, 400 of them, according to Caesar, which in a battle of hundreds of thousands,
It's pretty small.
400 should not make a difference whatsoever. But the cavalrymen arrive late to the battle behind the main contingent of the Gallic warriors, and it's a fucking slaughterhouse, and it turns the battle around. Why is it, and this can be applied throughout history, that certain units in war, like Spartans against Persians, German cavalrymen against Gallic tribes, why is it that they are just so much better? Why do they make such a difference?
There is an answer to that, and the answer has to do with 1, timing, 2, training, and 3, effects. So let's talk first about timing. Now, 400 cavalrymen may not have made much difference if, in fact, they weren't riding up into the rear of the Celtic column, right?
Right.
So timing is a very important factor in terms of the impact of a particular unit or a particular effect that is deployed. Second, training. If a unit is not well trained, they may not be able to seize the opportunity that's in front of them that is provided to them based on their fortuitous timing or their good timing based on excellent planning. So you've got timing, which can be the result of either fortune or planning, and then you've got training, which is always the result of planning ahead rather, and is always useful. If you have well-trained troops, they have the ability then to take advantage of good timing. And then finally, the effects. What kind of unit is it? I don't care how well they're trained, and I don't care what the timing is. If you have a unit of accountants coming up into the battle, probably not going to be as effective. If you
got bitches on horses.
Right, with spears and lances and shit like that, if they've got the right weapons to deliver the proper effects, and they're well-trained and they're well-timed, they can have an outsized impact on the outcome of the battle. And that's true today as it was 2,000 years ago.
Technology makes a difference.
Well, but that's the thing, is that these Gallic and Roman troops weren't really technologically. The Gauls had cavalry too. They were all just using edged weapons.
Well, but did they have the cavalry when the other cavalry came up? The cavalry's probably in the front, right?
No, the cavalry was somewhere else.
Works.
But the technology, that's what I'm saying. Is like if the technology is so similar, and as you say, Dad, timing is a huge thing. That's basically just luck. Luck and timing. Can't really train for that. You can, but sometimes it just shakes out how it shakes out.
Well, that's true. So like I said, timing can also be the result of good pre-planning. It doesn't sound like it was in this particular case, but it can be.
So when it comes to training, both sides are training. Everyone's training. But one people's training is just so much better. These are things, I'm asking questions, but they really can't be answered. These are things that can't be quantified in historical texts. Toughness, panic, drills.
Desperation.
Yeah.
Well, here's something else that can't be quantified, but the victor is presumed to be the better leader, correct? And so leadership also plays a vital role in whether or not a unit is going to have an impact. If they are effectively led, then they'll be able to utilize that training. And in fact, if they're effectively led, they'll be better trained. Their timing will almost certainly be better, and their effectiveness will be better by virtue of the solidity of their leadership.
What you're telling me is that Julius Caesar had a +5 to charisma?
It's certainly more than
minimum.
+5.
Yeah, probably +10.
Yeah. Well, and also the presence of leadership. If Julius Caesar was present on the battlefield, and if the Gallic king who had unified all those tribes, Vercingetorix was his name, was present on the battlefield, both sides are fighting harder because A, your leader is there watching you and commanding you from his very own lips. B, the other leader is there and you can get him. You can go get that other leader. Imagine the war hero you would be if you were the one who threw the spear that went right through the Gallic king's throat and scattered the troops.
Yeah, I've seen The Witcher.
Yeah, and I can imagine that also because not many people know this, but I killed Osama bin Laden.
Thanks for your service, Dad.
You're welcome.
Right.
I'm just kidding. But I was there. We all thought we would come home because that's why we were there, to kill Osama bin Laden. And then he got killed, and then we didn't come home. That's the end of that story.
Well, you did eventually.
Well, I did.
Yeah, when your tour was up.
Never coming home, never coming home.
I don't know. We still got jokers there.
It's just interesting how people have been like, okay, these Romans are fucking us. They're way better than us.
Yeah.
So let's hire a disgruntled Roman centurion, have them train our people like Romans, buy them the same weapons and the same gear, and it doesn't work.
Well, yeah, because you also have to account for cultural differences. You have to account for the length of training, how many Roman soldiers were brought up in the army. You know, all that shit. They had the advantage of experience.
And that is a huge advantage. It makes all the difference in the world. There's just some things you wouldn't be able to know without seeing it. We have these guesses, but it's like, why were Spartans so heavily outmatched by Persians and just fucking them?
Yeah.
Which only worked for a little bit, and then the Persians came back and fucked them. But
it made for a great movie.
But that was because of money. That wasn't because of training. That was because the Persian Empire had so much fucking money. They were just paying other Greek city-states to betray Sparta and Athens. They just had more resources.
There's a million ways to play the game.
And as Caesar said in one of his books, a battle is decided by hand strokes. It comes down to the nitty-gritty fighting in the trenches.
Yeah.
It does, but it also comes down to leadership and a willingness to, as you say, Nick, put yourself as the leader out on the battlefield. The presence of a leader in battle makes an enormous difference.
It does.
So I was listening because our election is coming up in 14 days or something like that?
Oh, it can't come soon enough.
But I was listening this morning to The Daily, and they did a couple spots on Biden's campaign versus Trump's campaign. And the bit that they did on Trump's campaign was, in his 4 years as president, what promises has he made and what promises has he kept? And so to your point of removing troops from Afghanistan, he's kept a lot of his promises on foreign policy. He's kept a lot of his promises on immigration, on removing troops from the Middle East. The things that he hasn't kept his promises on are economic promises and things like that. But I thought it was really interesting that they laid out all of these campaign promises that Trump had made in 2016 and then showed him following through on it. It's like, oh, he actually was effective. It's just that I didn't agree with those policies in the first place. So the fact that he was doing them just made me angry.
Yeah, I have a lot of Republican voting friends who I'm horrified that they can support Trump, but they basically come back with, hey, he's actually done the things that he said he would do that I agree with. And I'm like, well, I can't fucking be your friend now because I don't agree with those. But,
yeah,
you know.
Why do you agree with those things?
Yeah, why would you agree with, for example, prohibiting immigration? Now, immigration is an issue where we simply need more people in this country for a whole variety of reasons.
You know why?
Most notably, economically. We can't grow as an economy without more and fresh people in this country. And the idea that somehow because other people don't have the exact same culture as we do, that they're going to somehow steal our culture or dilute our culture or ruin our culture, that's just xenophobic thinking. We're famous for it as Americans. We thought the same thing about Italians. We thought the same thing about the Irish. We thought the same goddamn thing about the Scottish. And now all of those people that we used to think were horrible and were not American are as American as apple pie. And that's also true or will be true, certainly, for people who are coming to us from other places. They too will be American if they believe in what it means to be an American. And what it means to be an American is fair play and voting and freedom of speech and democracy. Those are the things that make us American, not color of our skin or a particular religion. No, what makes us American is a belief in a country that's a shining city on a hill for everybody who wants to come here and enjoy liberty.
Well, and furthermore, illegal immigrants especially are an actual economic benefit. There's been tons of studies done on this where illegal immigrants still pay in to our tax system and our retirement and stuff, but they can't withdraw from it.
Yeah, man. The more the merrier. We need them.
Yeah.
But that's just one example. To your point, Sarah, President Trump has done a great job keeping his promises in terms of deregulation. He promised he'd deregulate a bunch of industries. He has deregulated a bunch of industries. Now, you can make an argument that that's a bad deal for most Americans, and I think it is a bad deal in terms of the environment, and I think it's a bad deal in terms of protection of consumers. But he promised he would do it, and he has done it. And that's made a lot of business people and rural people, particularly farmers, very, very happy. Now, what's made farmers unhappy is the elimination of their export markets because of his trade wars. But what's made them happy is he's given them $29 billion in farm aid. So he's done what he said he's going to do, and he's packed the courts with conservative justices as well. So you cannot say that Trump hasn't followed through on a significant portion of his promises, despite the fact that he can't open his fucking mouth without a lie coming out.
Yeah, and the fact that his promises are goddamn abhorrent.
Well, from one point of view, from a point of view of a reasonable person.
Yeah, from the right point of view.
And by right, you mean correct, of course. One of the things that he has certainly not kept his promises on is that, A, Mexico was going to pay for the wall. That's a lie. He also didn't keep his promise that he was going to come out with a better plan than the Affordable Care Act. We're still waiting for the Republican plan. Replace with nothing. We still don't have a so-called Republican health care plan, which, from my point of view, is absolutely abhorrent. And that leads us into our discussion of the fact that Elsie and I came down here to Farmville, Virginia. That's where we're at right now. We're in Farmville, Virginia, the heart of Virginia. Farmville, it's not just a game on Facebook. No, it's actually a charming little town right here in the heart of Virginia. We came down here as a kind of a celebration for a variety of different things. And here we are. We're celebrating here in Farmville. And on the way down here, we stopped by Montpelier. Not the small town in Ohio where I grew up. That's Montpelier anyway. No, we stopped by Montpelier, which is the old mansion of James Madison, the father of the U.S. Constitution and the fourth U.S. president of the United States, and a lifelong slaveholder. And so here's a guy, to quote Chris Collinsworth, here's a guy, Al, who is the father of the American Constitution, but never in his long 85-year life reconciled his beliefs in liberty with the fact that he was the author of the compromise that declared that slaves were 3/5 of a human being for the purposes of counting representatives.
It's always been a hellscape, and there's no end in sight.
I've been saying that forever. Everyone's like, no, it's not a hellscape. It's fine. Everything's going to be fine. They're going to build a magical castle around the United States, and everything will be great. I know no empire has ever lasted for more than 250 years, but America is going to be different. We're going to be different.
Look, I just can't figure out how to get out of the hellscape.
We're going to be different. It's okay, because we're great. We're American.
We're going to build back better.
History means nothing to America. We beat history.
Here's what we're actually doing, though, in Farmville, Virginia, though. We're going and seeing some kick-ass furniture. And I mean kick-ass. Yeah, so Farmville, Virginia. Basically,
kick-ass furniture?
Yeah, like handmade, antique.
Yeah. Well, it's not antique. It's higher-end furniture. For example, we saw a couch that I loved that was, how much was it, Elsie? About $4,700?
Oh.
It was a $4,700 couch. Beautiful couch. I think we need two. Actually, I think it was $4,200, but I say that because it's $8,400 to put two of those couches in our living room, which is what we really need to do.
Hey, quick question.
Yeah.
Are you like entertaining royalty?
Yeah, what the fuck?
Look, I do appreciate good furniture, but this is
$8,500.
This is the most bougie shit I have ever heard.
Just for your dog to destroy it in a week? Come on.
So first of all, no, we're not going to buy it. But yes, your father believes that his buttocks are royal and he deserves to put them in this comfy, comfy couch.
Look, the prophet of the Church of Universal Energy in the infinite multiverse has got to have the absolute best furniture in order to...
Yeah, maybe in another multiverse there, bud. This one, you're 240% disabled. And disabled persons do not get nice couches.
See, I thought disabled persons deserved the best couches.
Not in America.
I guess
not in this multiverse.
That's true. Not in this particular American multiverse. Speaking of which, though, and speaking of President Trump, a federal judge has ruled against the administration's plan to kick 700,000 people off of the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as SNAP. And in fairness, the Trump administration wants to put more stringent work requirements on SNAP benefits or food stamps. And the idea is that too many food stamp recipients don't enjoy the dignity of work. And so in order to help them enjoy the dignity of work, we're going to help them enjoy the dignity of starvation.
America.
But a federal judge put an end to that, saying there's no fucking reason for you to kick 700,000 fucking people off of food stamps when this pandemic has driven an additional 8 million Americans to use supplemental nutrition assistance benefits.
That's a good point. Hey,
let's hear it for the judicial system occasionally.
I'm still salty about Ruth Ginsburg dying. But I did listen to the Senate hearings for Amy Coney Barrett. Is that her name?
Amy Coney Barrett.
Yeah, okay. I was pretty close.
Amy Homo Barrett? What'd you call her?
Coning, I think is what I said instead of Coney.
All right. Well, it's Coney. Is it Comey or Coney?
Amy Coney Island.
Yeah, there we go. Amy Coney Island. And I thought this about one of the other judges whose name I can't remember, he was a conservative judge who actually ruled in favor of...
Neil Gorsuch.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, the point is that they both kind of have this textual philosophy, right? So a textbook definition of the law and then upholding it based on precedent, which maybe this is the conservative in me, but I think that that's a pretty sound judicial approach. So I don't know. I guess I'm not feeling as totally desolate about her appointment like I was, although she had some interesting responses to sexual preference and on the whole topic of abortion. And what can we do besides see what happens?
I'll tell you what we can do. We can, as a country, decide that our Congress ought to increase the number of justices. No problem.
Yeah,
and I'm for that. Hey, look, if you go take a tour of the Capitol, they'll take you into the old Supreme Court, which was in the U.S. Senate until right before the Civil War, as a matter of fact. And then actually, longer than that, after the Civil War, it was housed in the United States Senate up until the 1930s when they actually built a separate Supreme Court building. And there have been as few as 5 justices on the Supreme Court and as many as 10. So now we have 9. Okay, that's fine. No reason it couldn't be 11 or 13.
I don't have enough of an education on the subject to have an opinion on it.
I do.
It's like at a certain point, though, it becomes, Star Wars, when they're all in their floating pods and they're all voting in the Senate eventually. The Republic, that's what the Supreme Court justices is going to be if we keep packing it.
I agree. It's going to be longer and harder to arrive at decisions. But at the same time, I think 6-3 is pretty grossly weighted to one side.
Yeah, I do also agree with that, is that shouldn't we have a neutral court? You would think.
Yes. Yeah, so here's how you get that. You get 11 people, so you get more of an even split.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm for court packing. There's nothing against it. Constitution doesn't say you can't. So you just tweak the size of the Supreme Court to fit the political need of the day. That's what I say.
Changing the number doesn't solve the problem, though. If they put in more people, then they could just end up with more liberals and then be too weighted on the liberal side or too many conservatives on the other side. Changing the number is not significantly going to change the issue at hand.
So are you a favor then of maybe term limits? Maybe only putting them in for 18 years instead of a whole fucking lifetime, which I think is insane.
Maybe not term limits in the case of the Supreme Court, but it may be just like I don't think old people should drive if they don't actually pass an actual driving test.
An age limit?
Yes. I think it should just be like, are you capable at this point of still doing your job? Yes or no?
Sir, when's the last time you took the bar exam?
Right. Well, perhaps. I say this, if you can't drive, then maybe you shouldn't be Supreme Court justicing. Does that sound fair? Okay, great. I guess we've got that solved. That's good. On another subject, though, and I did want to bring this up, do either of you give a shit about the World Series?
Nope. Nick, do you give a shit about the World Series?
College World Series?
No, the baseball World Series, the real World Series.
Then no. What do you mean real? College World
There's-
Series is very real for Omaha, let me tell you.
There's more than one World Series?
Pro and college.
Yeah. Do you guys live in Omaha?
Yeah, you know this. Why are you acting like you don't know this?
Everybody knows. Who fucking
Okay.
cares?
All
But
right,
the
that's
College
fine.
World Series takes place here, and it's fucking a big deal. Just because people come from all around the country, so restaurant workers feel
It's good money.
they feel the wrath. Yeah, it's good money.
They come from
Especially
all
if you
over
work
the
downtown.
country, not all over the world, though, right?
Isn't that what I
Is it really a
said?
World Series or is it a country series?
Oh, I get what you're saying. Yeah, people over the world don't give a fuck about College World Series.
No, there are 3 guys that come from France. So they come
And
from,
they give a shit.
So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
not world. That's World and France series. America and
Anglo-Français or something.
Anglo-Francois.
right, series.
In fact,
series
that's
of
their name.
baseball. Anglo-Francois series of baseball taking place in Omaha, Nebraska.
Concurrent with the College World Series. No, but I'm talking about the professional World Series, the Major League Baseball World Series between the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Tampa Bay Rays, formerly known as the Tampa Bay Devil Rays.
Is that why my Bitmoji had a Miami Dolphin looking uniform on today?
Maybe.
That's
Although-
dumb. They just put the shit on your thing like you give a fuck.
Well, it's like when you're replying in Snapchat, they give you Bitmoji examples, and 2 out of 3 were in some sort of baseball uniform. And I was like, what the fuck? Although I didn't realize it was baseball at the time.
Yeah, whether it's World Series or College World Series, I think I speak for the both of us when I say we don't care.
I got you. But let me just say this, that for the Los Angeles Dodgers, it's a chance at redemption because they were beaten by the Houston Astros in the World Series a couple of years ago. And it's now been revealed that the Houston Astros were fucking cheating. They had stolen the signals and were signaling the signals to the batters. So Clayton Kershaw, who is a world-renowned, soon-to-be Hall of Fame pitcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers, he's had a number of postseason meltdowns, including one against Houston, which can now be chalked up to Houston cheating. And now Los Angeles has a chance to win the World Series. Houston was eliminated by the Tampa Bay Rays. And so it's going to be an interesting World Series just from that kind of storyline. Now,
Drama!
drama. Now, you might be asking, well, Pete, or Dad, because, I'm your father, so you might be saying Dad versus Pete, although I really don't care if you call me Pete, although...
Neither do we. Moving on.
Do you care? And the answer is no, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I can see why it would be interesting.
Now, I will tell you what I'm more interested in from a baseball point of view, and that's the death of a guy named Joe Morgan. Now, Joe Morgan was well known as a baseball commentator, but when I was a kid, Joe Morgan was the second baseman for the Cincinnati Reds. And I grew up part of my childhood in Ohio and southern Michigan, northern Ohio and southern Michigan. And the big red machine of the 1970s with Pete Rose, Joe Morgan, Dave Concepcion, Johnny Bench,
Karl Marx.
right, Jesus Christ, the Buddha. I mean, this baseball team had it all. Muhammad, you name it.
Julius Caesar.
Adolf Hitler, everyone was on this team. And I'm telling you, they were dominant in the 70s. So rest in peace, Joe Morgan.
I mean, if they didn't beat you on the field, they just murdered you afterward.
That's right. They were very famous for both their World Series victories and their genocide.
I'm so glad you survived.
Yeah,
Is that
anyway,
one of those, the only way you got out as a kid is if you caught one of the baseballs in the stadium?
I guess. I don't know why I compared them to Adolf Hitler. I don't know. Joe Morgan, rest in peace. You had nothing to do with Adolf Hitler. I want to make that clear.
You don't know.
I'm pretty sure about that. Hey, so more important than the election coming up, we've got Halloween coming up.
Spoopy season, spoopy season.
Well, yeah, man. And you know what that means?
What?
It means that we're going to have a special guest on the pod next week.
Oh, who's going to be here?
My friend Brenda Rumley, who is a ghost hunter, and we're going to ask her questions about her adventures ghost hunting.
Yeah, I hope she's got thick skin or doesn't take this ghost hunting shit too seriously. One of those two.
Now, why do you say that, son? Are you a
I'm
skeptic?
going to ask her some questions. I'm going to ask her to explain herself.
But you sound skeptical of this ghost hunting business, son.
I'm skeptical.
Haven't you ever seen a ghost? It seems like you have.
Who knows what you see, what you want to see, what your brain's telling you see. I don't know. Hey, she'll have all the answers. She's the pro ghost hunter here.
So basically, I should tell her that you're going to attack her every chance you get. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like ready
No,
to
no,
fight.
no.
Such a strong word.
No. I'm not going to attack her. Just tell her to have all her ducks in a row. That's all. Just tell her to have her answers ready, and they better be good and logical.
Ma'am, you're going to have your papers in order before we allow you onto this radio
That's all.
program.
There will be no attacking. There will be simple, logical questions,
Asked in a scathing manner.
of which I will expect a logical answer. That's all. It's easy. It's nothing to be scared of.
I'm sorry, I missed her name.
Brenda.
Elderbrook Brazenschnoff.
Brenda Eldenbrook, welcome to a Shin Show next week. We look forward to talking with you.
Yeah, it's Brenda Rumley.
Brenda Rumley Eldenbrook, welcome to the show.
Why did you throw Eldenbrook on the end? Just because?
I don't know, Nick did it.
Oh, I see. Well, it's kind of a spooky name, too. Brenda Eldenbrook. We might ask her to change her name legally.
I mean, she has to if she's going to join the church.
No, you don't have to change your name to join the Church of Universal Energy in the Infinite
just her.
Multiverse.
You do if we will it.
Yeah.
Well, if I will it, I'm the prophet.
Are you trying to pull rank right
yeah,
now?
don't pull rank. We'll overthrow you.
You will, too. I know that's true. Hey, so what do you kids got going on this week? Anything of interest?
Well, I got a COVID test today, so that's kind of interesting.
Pass or fail?
I don't know yet. I just got it done today.
How come?
Because there are 2 positives at my work, which I have a low contact risk of, but still. And here's the interesting thing about that is that, first of all, I have a nose piercing, and I was super worried that it would get in the way of them shoving a 6-inch Q-tip up my nose. So I'm in the line to go take this COVID test, right? Struggling to get my nose ring out because I got it pierced like 2 years ago, and I have never taken this nose ring out. So when's the best time to try? Anyway, long story short, I never did get it out because I don't know how. And
It's part of her nose.
it's part of my nose. It's like a corkscrew one, and I watched a video while I was in line. They're like, yeah, you just push it down. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, that's further than I've gotten so far. And they're like, and then you just turn it. There is no turning.
What you needed, honey, was a needle nose pliers.
I fucking guess. So the lady sticks this Q-tip up my nose, and she goes, oh, I can't find the pocket that this is supposed to go into. So I'm just going to stick this up your other nostril. So she does that and lockpicks my sinuses until she finds the secret hidey hole. And she's like, there it is, as I'm seeing spots in my vision, and rips it out gently, bypassing the nose ring entirely. I totally could have just left it without fucking with it, but whatever. And then she proceeds to stick the 6-inch stick back up my right nostril, poke around a little. She takes it back out. She's like, I just can't find it. Sticks it up a 3rd time. And then she's like, you know what? I'm not going to force it.
Great. And so your test will come back when?
I don't know.
In the fullness of time. That's
Yeah.
great.
Usually 72 hours is about what Test Nebraska has a turnaround time of.
I see. And you look terrific. You look like you're feeling quite good.
Fine.
At best, you're asymptomatic. Okay, that's good. Nick, I understand you have a heart stress test this week.
I thought that was last week.
No. It was supposed to be. That was kind of a whole fustercluck. So the first time that it was supposed to happen, it was at the Durham Center on Farnham.
Yeah.
My doctor at the Midtown Clinic was like, I'm going to schedule you for a stress test, okay? So just be expecting that. And then like 2 weeks later, I never heard anything. And so I called them and I was like, hey, I was supposed to be scheduled for a stress test. Like, when is that? And they're like, oh, it's happening on the 12th. And I was like, oh, it's already scheduled. Okay, cool. And they're like, yeah, okay, so we'll see you here on the 12th at 10 a.m. And I was like, all right, sounds good. I show up to the Midtown Clinic at 10 a.m. and they're like, oh, no, it's not here. It's at the fucking Durham Center. So I'm like, oh, I wish someone would have told me that. By the way, it seems obvious now, but on the way there, I got some coffee because it's early. So I'm drinking some coffee. I get there, wrong fucking building. I find the right building. I'm like 12 minutes late. She's like, you're actually 2 minutes past the time where you're too late, but I'll sneak you in. I look around, there's no one there. I'm like, yeah, you'll sneak me in. Yes, you will.
Thank you.
Because there's no one fucking here. So someone's going to do some work today. So I get in there, and the lady's like, all right, so we're going to hook you up to this. Have you had anything to eat or drink in the last 4 hours? And I was like, yeah, I had some coffee on the way here. She's like, oh, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to have anything to eat or drink 4 hours before you do this. I'm like, boy, I wish someone would have told me that, huh? Am I supposed to just know that? Wish a doctor would have told me that.
So the stress test has already begun, but it's also psychological. They just didn't tell you.
So she's like, okay, well, let me go talk to the doctor. And I'm like, okay, go talk to the fucking doctor. And she comes back. She's like, yeah, we're going to have to reschedule for next Wednesday. And I was like, okay.
Do you have like a list of things I should and should not do? That would be great.
I was like, okay, fine. So she hands me the piece of paper that says scheduled for this at 11 p.m. next Wednesday. And I'm like, okay.
PM?
AM. So I go down there. I'm about to be on time, and I look at the paper, just making sure. I'm like, okay, it's the right time. And I'm like, wait. So now I have driven down to 24th and goddamn Fardham.
Again.
From 108th and Maple. Okay?
Right.
And I'm looking at the goddamn, and I'm like, 104. It's at Oakview. They changed it to the fucking Oakview location, which is on the other side of town. So I had to call them, and I'm like, hey, I'm supposed to be there, in 5 minutes ago, and it's at a different location, and nobody fucking told me, so I'm gonna have to reschedule. And they're like, okay, next Wednesday. So this upcoming Wednesday, I will go to this, and I'm like, it's at 144th, right, at 11 a.m.? And they're like, yeah, and I'm like, great, I'll see you there. So this upcoming Wednesday, I will drink or eat nothing. I will show up to the correct location at the correct time, and everything will go as according to plan.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, be sure and wear comfortable clothes and tennis shoes because they're going to put you on a treadmill and make you run until you feel like you're going to die.
Yeah, I was prepared for that.
That was the only thing he was prepared for.
Yeah.
Yeah, showing up at the right location at the right time, not with the right substances in your body. So important. I'm really excited about that. Hope that works out for you, son.
Yeah, I mean, it seems obvious now that you shouldn't have caffeine when
you're trying to do the baseline
but
for your heart.
nobody told me. You gotta tell me.
Kids, great to talk to you. Love you. Happy Halloween. Although it's too early for that.
It's October. That is Halloween month.
Is the podcast going to be next week before Halloween? Or is it going
Yes.
to be on Halloween?
It will be sooner than Halloween. Trust me.
All right.
All right.
It'll be the 26th.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Or sooner. Actually, it'll be
This
the
has
25th.
gone on far too long.
Oh, there's no question. The editing chore is going to be intense, yo.
Just do it raw.
Aren't you glad you're not employed anymore?
Do it
Oh, my
live.
God.
Fuck it. We'll do it live.
Jesus, can you imagine?
Oh, you bet I can.
I do have a huge respect for people who did this shit live, like radio shows.
Yeah.
You know
Like
what
me?
I mean? Like to
Like
make
me?
it good radio at all times.
Like-
no editing.
Like
I
me.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
for your
you keep
goddamn
like leaning
service.
in right as I'm talking, so I keep not hearing what
He
you're
says,
saying.
like me.
Oh, okay.
Like me. Like me. Yes. Like you, Dad.
Like you
Good
what?
job.
Yeah, like I
You
used
did
to be
radio
on the-
for years.
Yeah, I did radio for years, live.
Well, but was it good?
Wow.
It may have been good for what you were doing, but like just objectively agricultural radio? I mean, was that
He did other things.
Well, I wouldn't know. I was there, but I wasn't paying attention.
I understand.
I
I'm
was
going to
just-
put that on your fucking gravestone.
I was a snot-nosed kid just eating candy and
I
shit.
was there. I just wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
That is the perfect epitaph.
The Department of Motor Vehicles, in conjunction with Abattoir Industrials, is introducing a revolutionary new component to the bureaucratic process. We all know the pain of showing up to the DMV bright and early in order to perform our legally mandated civic duty to properly register and license our vehicles, just to be met with a line at the front door that spans the length of the block. Times where you used to have only one option, to wait in line for the next 3 to 6 hours until it was your turn to complete a blizzard of asinine vehicular paperwork. But now you can choose a second, more streamlined option, one that terminates in a set of stainless steel doors on the floor. Then it's simply a matter of leaving your license and proof of insurance on the floor next to those doors, stepping forward onto the polished and inviting pieces of metal, and letting the feelings of weightlessness and grinding wash over you as one of Abattoir Industrial's patented human flesh grinders sends you screaming into the void. New license plates and tags will be mailed to the next of kin, and you'll never have to deal with the DMV or any line of any kind ever again. The DMV. It's the last place you want to go, and now it can be.
A Shin Show is a production of Shinfluence. It features the voices and opinions of the Shin family, which are entirely and exclusively their own. Join us each week on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks as always to our regular listeners. We love to hear from you, so if you have a question, comment, recommendation, or idea you would like to submit to a Shin Show, please email us at ashinshow@gmail.com, and we will be happy to ignore it, belittle you publicly, or steal your ideas if you actually have a good one. And don't forget, if it ain't ass, it's shit.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.